Hey everybody, Mo here. The format of today and tomorrow's episode is going to be a little different, with today's episode being all about government policy updates and tomorrow's episode being all about company-specific updates. And that's just to keep these videos at a reasonable length. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 6th edition of Mary Jane Markets. This is a show covering the developing news of the North American cannabis sector every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I also analyze a few of its operators: Cresco Labs, Curaleaf, Green Thumb Industries, and Trulieve. This is all through the eyes of fundamental analysis and longer-term focused investing. I don't do any technical analysis here, no drawing on charts or any of those other trading strategies. The aim here is to do all of the due diligence I normally do as an investor in these companies and then provide that to you in a concise episode so that you can stay updated and hopefully you find that valuable. I also provide my thoughts and opinions and hopefully that provides some value too. There is no broader sector news to go over today, so we'll jump right into government policy updates. There have been some pretty significant updates here at the federal level in the US since we last spoke. No doubt by now you've seen them on the newsfeed, and I do apologize for getting this stuff out so late. I know it doesn't do any of us any good to hear this stuff a week later, and I'm working on better scheduling my life so I can get these episodes out sooner. As we're talking about the safe banking and more acts here in a second, we should try and hold the bigger picture in our heads. While these pieces of legislation are a huge deal to us and our sector, there are bigger and more important issues on Congress's plate. If you're not aware, Congress is currently working on a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill, a budget bill, and raising the debt ceiling by an October 18th deadline. So these are definitely not top priority.
What has any of this got to do with the MORE Act? We're talking about a marijuana bill.
But turning to the matter at hand, let's first discuss the Safe Banking Act, something we've been following and analyzing really closely on this show. Some of you may remember my frustration a few episodes ago about the quote-unquote strategy that was used to pass safe banking by adding it as an amendment to the much larger and more important NDAA defense bill. And we had looked at a few different things, such as the Senate's preference to pass these amendments with a unanimous vote, and an interview given by the sponsor of the amendment that demonstrated his, I'll say, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks approach. And I had basically read the field there and told you guys it would face opposition in the Senate. That wasn't too hard of a deduction since the most prominent Democrats in the Senate had come out against it and have their own initiative. So on September 30th, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer gave an interview with iHeartRadio's Psychoactive podcast, and this was after the Safe Banking Amendment had cleared the House, and Senator Schumer was asked about this topic, which is obviously why we're talking about it, and the host asking him why not let banking reform move forward while the long-term process of the legalization bill needs to work itself through. Senator Schumer responding, Senators Booker, Wyden, and I have come to an agreement that if we let the banking bill out, it'll make it much harder and take longer to pass comprehensive reform. To his credit, and he has been consistent about this, he does go on to say, we certainly want the provisions similar to the Safe Banking Act in our bill, but to get more moderate people, to get some Republicans, to get the financial services industry behind a comprehensive bill is the way to go. It's the right thing to do. So there you have it. As we speculated, passing just the Safe Banking Act would take the air out of the balloon of the CAOA. And if that doesn't convince you, Senator Schumer tweeted out today, October 6th, for decades, Americans, disproportionately Americans of color, have been arrested and jailed for carrying small amounts of marijuana. I'm working with Senators Booker and Ron Wyden to pass our CAOA to end federal prohibition. I also have an update for you today on the MORE Act. That's the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, also a more comprehensive legalization bill. When we last spoke about this, the House Judiciary Committee was going to mark this up and vote on it, and last week they did just that. And as I'm sure you've heard by now, this act did clear this committee on Thursday, with reporting a 26-15 vote. And honestly, I think everything we said about safe banking and why that isn't going to pass the Senate applies here too. And as we saw from the majority leader's tweet today, which comes a full week after the MORE Act was voted out of committee, the CAOA is still the federal legalization bill that they want to pass. So I would expect the MORE Act to be dead on arrival in the Senate too. And I'm sorry if I'm being too negative about this, but this bill's main sponsor is Congressman Gerald Nadler, a Democrat out of New York. The Safe Banking Act was also sponsored by a Democratic Congressman, Ed Perlmutter. So with Senators Schumer and Booker's clear agenda, I don't understand why these party members are so scattered. This, to me, seems really disorganized and not how you get things done. If you're really serious about passing a reform bill, don't waste your time and effort on stuff like this. Do your job, get together in a room, decide which of these bills you're going to pass in both the House and the Senate. Get the leader of your party, the president, on board and make this happen. Just super frustrating. Shifting over now to more recent news. This comes from the state of New York, where yesterday the Cannabis Control Board held their first meeting. We last looked at New York's market last month when they rounded out this 5-person board, and now they've started meeting. But finally, we're seeing some progress in what could be the third largest market in the nation. And at this meeting, which Marijuana Moment describes as preliminary, the main things to come out of it were filling of some regulatory positions. For the medical program, they allowed flower products to be sold at existing dispensaries. They're also waiving the registration fees for patients and caregivers. So this sort of clues us in as to what powers this board has. So some of you might remember I was questioning the regulatory structure and what powers this board has versus the Office of Cannabis Management. So for new listeners, there's 2 regulatory authorities in New York that are responsible for overseeing the cannabis market. There's the Cannabis Control Board, which oversees an independent Office of Cannabis Management. So we were all wondering what the board can do and what the office can do. And now the actions they've taken in this first meeting are telling me that the board is the one that sets the rules. And the office might be the bureaucratic machine that operators will have to work with, where they'll handle the processes and paperwork and licenses in accordance with the rules set by the board. So this is probably really boring to most of you, but this potentially being the third largest market in the country, it's good to check in on the progress. Something we still haven't seen progress on is recreational licenses. So there are still no adult use dispensaries open in the state. According to Marijuana Moment, it looks like this is because municipalities still have to vote on whether they'll opt out of allowing these dispensaries in their zone, and they have until the end of the year to do that. But I think that's just one roadblock. From what I'm reading, I believe this board still has to define what this adult use market is going to look like. So now that this board can convene, it's time for them to get to work on that. Alright, that is it for this episode. If you are liking the content, please subscribe. Turn those notifications on so you can stay updated on the sector. I will try to get these out in a more timely manner. If you'd like to contact me, my Twitter is @MJMarkets. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you really soon in the next episode.